everybody, and welcome back to the Chilluminati podcast, episode 301. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Mike Martin, joined by my two beautiful co-hosts in LA, Alex and Jesse.
Beautiful.
Andy said our names. I'm shocked. It's a new day. 301.
Yeah, 301. We're past 300. Dropping.
I love it. I love it.
Okay.
I love that I'm beautiful out the gate. I don't have any argument to make. I don't have to fight for my identity. I feel good. I feel beautiful.
I wonder, I hope everybody, we'll see how the listeners, adapt before we move forward permanently. But, welcome to the show, gentlemen. How you been? How was your week?
I've been thinking a lot about remorseless murder.
Good.
Which has been, heavy on my mind. But in my personal life, it's been a great week. Except that I've been trapped in my house for the entire week because my landlord ripped my front door off and my door doesn't lock, and they were painting and rebuilding all my stairs, and I couldn't leave or enter my apartment from the hours of 9 to 4. And yes, I realized that that's not legal, but you know what? I got to do my work, and I don't have time to have a lawsuit. So that's what my week was like. How's that?
No, you win.
All right.
Pretty good. Beautiful week for us.
Beautiful. It matches your descriptor of the day. Sorry to hear that, but maybe if we had more money at Patreon, you could hire a lawyer to do all of it for you.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to say is Alex's struggles are really your responsibility, audience.
Yeah.
So why aren't you helping Alex? I think is what these two gentlemen are saying.
My point is, correct. I've got a PayPal.
No.
If you guys just want to reach out,
no.
This is true bottom of the barrel. We really are there.
at Gmail.
You want to make an individual donation to one host?
Send $20
if you want to
$200.
Send money to Alex.
Just send $20 to $200 my way. That's it's worked for me in the past. I've made that joke in the past, and I got a couple Chipotle burritos out of it.
I don't. I would genuinely feel like I now owe everyone Chipotle. I'd be like, I owe everyone Chipotle burritos.
The $10,000 Patreon joke has never taken a serious bid yet, though. But we should keep.
That's because that's ludicrous. Yeah. But someone out there will definitely buy Alex a burrito, and I don't want to be a part of that.
The $200 PayPal reality is going to work out just fine. But no, don't do that. If you're going to spend money on us, please go to patreon.com/ChilluminatiPod to make sure that we are we're able to make this beautiful show forever and ever. And my dog agrees.
Yeah, that's a dog being like, don't do it. It's shameless.
He announced himself on his way. He was on his way over, letting you know before he came in.
What's that thing that happens in 101 Dalmatians where all the dogs
they turn into a coat?
Hey, stop it! Come here!
Chilluminati pod. Boys, are you ready to dive in? We need a hard pivot. There's no easy way to go from fun, lightheartedness into part 2 of what is going to be a 3-parter on the man known as Richard Kuklinski, aka the Iceman. So, Alex, I hope you're prepared for today, as you typically seem to be now with serial killers. Everybody out there, get your serial killer bingo cards out there.
Alex, strong serial killer vibes. I've said this before. I'll say it again.
No, no. Alex is closer to a Jim Jones than a serial killer. I think.
Alex puts on the cult front, but really, he's like,
I'm more of just like I feel like I'm more of just like a catchphrase guy.
Look at him. He'd kill people.
I'm more of like a catchphrase guy, I feel like.
Now, am I trying to...
What's that mean?
Push the suspicion away from me? Maybe.
We do notice Alex has a Gengar ghost, potentially representing the ghosts of his victims.
And isn't Gengar's like kids and stuff, I believe. So that's,
Here's when I'm going to walk off the show is when we do a whole story about like a Gengar guy. Like, I don't want to...
You're the Gengar guy?
If there's a Gengar guy, that's when I'm going to leave the show.
I just felt like I need to tell you that, Father's Day is coming up, and, you can't call me daddy in front of your dad. That's just for you and me. And if you're anything like me, when Father's Day comes around, you're kind of the same old story, right? Socks, grill tools, repeat, same thing every time. And this year, I'm trying to do better. And that's when I found Quince. And they made buying a thoughtful gift for my dad so easy. Quince has all the pieces dads actually want to wear, like organic cotton silk polos, European linen beach shorts, and comfortable pants for everything from weekend hangouts to nice dinners. And the best part of it all, everything with Quince is priced. And the best part of it all, everything with Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than what you'd find at similar brands. By working directly with tarp artisans and cutting out the middlemen, Quince gives you luxury pieces without the crazy markups. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. The shirt I'm wearing right now, yeah, look at your phone real quick. Gotcha, you can't see me, this is a podcast. But this shirt I'm wearing right now, so smooth, so light, and for me, one of the biggest things, just because of my sensory issues, is it's breathable. Like, it doesn't feel like I'm going to be sweating just because I'm wearing this thing. I also got my dad a nice pair of blue shorts, because that dude loves wearing, basically, as long as it's blue, he'll wear it. So for the dad who deserves better than basic, Quince has you covered. All you got to do is go to quince.com/chill for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Yeah, that's a whole year. That's QUINCE.com/chill to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/chill. Thank you again to Quince for sponsoring today's episode. All right, boys, we got to get into this shit. Here we go. Part 2 of the Iceman, Richard Kuklinski, of 3 parts, and you'll understand that at the end as to why. So where we left off, it was the early 1970s, and Richard Kuklinski's evolution from like a street predator to paid mob killer was just about complete. He had if we remember, he had a very violent upbringing marked with brutal daily beatings from his alcoholic father named Stanley Kuklinski, and obviously the weird religious fanaticism of his mother, Anna, had completely put him on a dark path there was no turning back. He was knocked unconscious by his father at 5 years old. He had brain damage almost assuredly. His father's abuse was also so pathologically cruel that it literally led to the death of his older brother, Florian, who his father had struck on the head so hard it killed him. And they then told Richard to tell the authorities that he had fallen down the stairs and then hit his head, which is how he died. So the whole family was complicit in the cover-up of how his older brother even died. I
would never recover from doing that. Just that would be enough to like take me out and ruin my entire life if I was responsible for something like that.
Do you think you would turn into a serial killer?
I don't really feel super serial killery. I never have had, well, you know what? Actually, now that I think about it, I've fallen down the stairs and gotten a permanent dent in my skull as a result. So,
but here you are as a
maybe I do
entertainer.
Have the head damage. I don't know.
You know, all cover.
Remember,
it's all cover. I've seen Dexter.
Remember though, like, you know, there are tons of people who go through this level of abuse and don't end up fucking serial killers.
That's really the main thing, is that it's not like a formula. Like,
no, there are certain things that may make it easier to slip into that path, but there's never a definitive, this is what you have to become. That foundational trauma, though, for him, witnessing his basically only childhood friend and older brother murdered by his dad, being forced to lie by his mother, compounded by his own early acts of cruelty, like capturing stray cats and dogs, tying their tails together, doing all kinds of horrible things to them, essentially laid the groundwork for what would be a career steeped in violence. His first human kill, the bully named Charlie Lane, tormented the crap out of him. This was his pivotal moment. After beating Lane to death with a wooden closet pole at the age of 14, Kuklinski had already a chilling calm to his methodical movements. He disposed of the body quite a distance away in a desolate marshlands of South New Jersey. He meticulously removed Lane's teeth with a hammer, chopped off his fingertips with a hatchet hammer tool that he actually found, all techniques that he gleaned from the true crime magazines that he was obsessed with.
Serial Killer Monthly?
Basically, that's what these things are, man. Like, they're like, and then the serial killer did these things, but the police found out because of this. And
you know what's so wild about this is so you know how every time there's like some sort of dramatic event in the news or some sort of attack or some sort of anything, and there's always like a pundit on TV or someone who's just like, well, you know, it could have been a lot worse if he had done this and this and this. And I always have the thought of like, why are you saying that, man? Yeah. And it's very clear in this scenario that this dude was like the guy taking notes.
And we will also in future cover other serial killers who very much make you realize that the reason serial killers often get caught is their own laziness, usually within their keeping it too close to where they live. But those who go through the work to spread everything out and make it look random almost never get caught. And the reason they do is their own mistakes every single time.
Isn't it crazy that Zodiac got the recipe for a fertilizer bomb out of like a domestic terrorism handbook that was just going around? Like, what's up with that?
Yeah, it's exactly correct. So who knows, like, now granted, now we live in a more digital age where that kind of thing is much easier tracked and followed. So you have a lot less privacy in that regard, but it's still not impossible if you remove all sense, all ties to electronics, all ties to the internet. You could probably disappear, but people would know you disappeared at that point because you're so entrenched, unless you literally know nobody. This first kill of his bully, basically, he said, quote, "I will never, ever allow anybody to fucking abuse me again." And from that point on, he never really did. Now, to him, he didn't kill anybody impulsively anymore, at least not primarily when on a contract. Those jobs for him demanded a different, colder mindset. He killed with more deliberation, purpose, and a profound sense of detachment that would become the hallmark of his killings. Kuklinski had learned how to turn death into a business and a craft that he mastered. And by his own admission, it wasn't the act of killing that he enjoyed. It was the intricate process leading up to it, saying things like, "I don't particularly enjoy the killing, I enjoy the stalk, the planning, and the hunt much more." And the kill itself for him was merely the closing act, the culmination of all that effort and all that work. He liked, as we said in the first episode, being good at something, and also murder was something he didn't actually really hate.
You want to know why I don't buy that shit?
Why?
Just play tag, bitch. Like,
right?
Like,
you can find an adult
like,
group to play Night Manhunt with.
I had to kill, I just love the hunt, man. I gotta kill people, but I just love tracking them down, hunting them. Just be a fucking, process server. God damn.
No shit. And even if it's like, yeah, but I like it when they don't know. Okay. You can still not follow through on any of the violent stuff. You know when it's
when it's like Mike Martin and you're like, yes, it's like, you're getting a divorce. I want to be that guy. I want to take off the mailman outfit and reveal that I'm actually, you
could dog the bounty hunter and still be the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or have you seen The Game? Let's do that to yourself.
Yeah. Why not?
Just shoot Sean Penn. Yeah.
Just shoot Sean Penn. That's fine. But to him, in his mind, it wasn't about that. It was less an emotional outburst and more of a performance of dominance and control, a lesson in deadly discipline. And murder was what he considered his skill set, his unique value in a world that prized lethality.
You can work at the fucking White House.
Nowadays, if he just hung on for a little longer.
He's just into dominating and subjugating, it's just he's just into doing that his own way at the beat of his own drum, man.
Yeah.
He's a killer, but it's not about the killing. He just kills. He just has to kill.
Yeah, exactly. He's just a serial killer. He prided himself on his ability to carry out any contract successfully, no matter how difficult or grotesque the requirements of him were. And as the author of the book, again, that we're using, written by Philip Carlo, Carlo wrote, quote, "No job was too difficult. He successfully carried out every contract he'd ever been given, and he prided himself on that largely." And word in the crime world began to spread across Jersey and New York's criminal underbelly that there was a man who could make people disappear without a sound, a whisper, and he wasn't tied to the mob or any of the families directly. He was an Italian, which was a significant detail that would normally bar him from deep trust and involvement with La Cosa Nostra. But for whatever reason, he possessed something even more valuable to the mob: the unwavering results in absolute direction. It was like the proof was in the pudding. Yeah, okay, he's not part of the family, but look at how good he is.
Look how thin he slices the garlic.
Yeah, exactly. This guy.
What they should have done is they should have got magicians for this shit. Make people disappear, no sound, no witnesses.
The mob and the mafia would be way cooler that way. Yeah. If that's how they made people disappear.
I'm going to make him disappear, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and then it just goes it zooms out and there's somebody in a chair with a freaking.
That's the plot of Now
them.
You See Me 3, actually. That's actually the level of storytelling that goes on in those films.
He, for the most important part for them was he didn't talk. He didn't brag. He didn't panic. The street legend was that if Kuklinski got a contract, it got done.
He just had like a hitman fetish, like straight up.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
And the body, more often than not, wasn't found. He was a ghost, a much sought after specialist, a homicide superstar in the netherworld of murder. You like that? I got another one coming up.
The netherworld of murder.
Netherworld of murder.
He was basically unique in that he filled murder contracts for all 5 New York crime families, as well as the 2 New Jersey mob families, the Pontus and the Cavalcantes.
How did he not get killed for that? That alone seems so fucked up to me.
You feel that seed of doubt? You feeling that seed of doubt? I want you to hold on to that seed of doubt. Don't water it. Don't tend it, but don't forget it.
Everything I know about committing crimes that are...
We've done a lot of crimes, and I like... We'll talk more.
All right,
I'll hold on to that.
I'll hold on to that in my
chest. That comes from, your pattern recognition in doing this show for 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, by Kuklinski's own extensive accounts, over 240 hours of one-on-one interviews with this guy, with crimes and murders verified where possible with police sources, documents, and underground mafia contacts. He was already responsible for dozens of murders by the time the organized crime families began taking a serious interest in Kuklinski. Some of his acts were indeed just impulsive acts of rage. We talked about him last time. The random stabbings of the homeless, shootings over perceived disrespect, just kind of a hair trigger temper that he very much maintained from his father. There's an example. He recounted a killing in particular, a nasty that he used on a homeless man on Manhattan's West Side with 2 swift knife thrusts for aggressively demanding money and then and grabbing his shoulder. Like some guy came up, grabbed his shoulder and demanded money. And so he just fucking took a knife and stabbed him twice.
See, again, to me, he's like, I'm a professional. I'm a fucking I'm the Iceman. Ice cold. And then it's like, so you were walking down the street, a like famous mafia assassin. And you just...
At this time, not necessarily famous mafia yet. They're starting to take notice of him, though.
Okay, he does a couple jobs for them. Whatever.
Yep.
But, like, then you just turn around and, like, commit a cold-blooded murder on the street to, like, just absolutely put suspicion on yourself. Like, it just seems sloppy to me. Like, for somebody who's trying to be Hitman 47, that seems sloppy to me.
Well, remember, we talked about it last week, too, that he boasted of killing... on Manhattan's West Side, the part that was basically like left alone. He really focused on the ignored parts of society, like the homeless. Those were his targets when he was in random killing mode.
But what year is this? It's not like 1905. Like it's the 70s.
No,
like
we're
the 60s or 70s.
We're in the 1970s. Yeah, 60s and 70s. He even called it his lab for murder. He said that he cleared the neighborhoods of these kinds of people, estimating the number as, quote, all the fingers on both hands 5 times is how many people he killed randomly.
This is like the guy in your not even college, like high school or middle school, who like read all the Square Enix player's guides and then said he played all those games. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like this feels absolutely nonsensical to me. This is like,
yes.
Yeah.
Like, I think I know what you're saying. Yeah. It's like, it's insanity. And he would often say, too, the reason would be simply for looking at it the wrong way, or they were being too pushy, asking for like spare change.
I had to kill him right then and there. And then after I killed him, I just left.
Yeah. But
he was fine.
But then he goes on to talk about like how other random killings were also just straight up chillingly calculated. Like he says one man, he said that he beat to death purely just for the exercise, like the cardio.
And then what did he do?
He left the body. He took the body and dumped it elsewhere.
For exercise.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's insane.
He also said an abusive bouncer at the Orchid Bar in Union City who had kicked him out and spit on him. He later ambushed and bludgeoned with a hammer in his car, destroying his face beyond recognition.
I mean, we've all brutally murdered 1 or 2 people that have pissed us off.
Bouncers in particular. I hate it when a bouncer kicks me out. Like, let me just get drunk in there. He also said he shot another man for cutting him off in traffic. That he said
from car to car.
An incident that he said that occurred after Paul Rothenberger hit, which is another hit he got called for. Yeah, car to car, where Richard, incensed by the driver giving him the finger, followed him off the parkway and shot him dead at a stoplight.
Hold on. Do we have evidence of the dead guy at a stoplight?
Hold on to that thought. I promise you I will address all of these things that you guys are thinking. We've got a timeline to go through. The line for Kuklinski at this point between like contract killing and thrill killing, even if he said it, he wasn't thrill killing for the sake of thrill killing, had basically been blurred. He just killed people.
He would just be playing competitive tag if that's what it was about.
Exactly.
My man is bored in Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, that's really what it sounds. It truly sounds.
He's like, let's see how many stars I can get.
He's actually bored in like Assassin's Creed, like some nonsense, like where he's just like, "You're dead." Like, what is that?
Yeah, you just walk up to him, you're dead.
That's crazy.
And what made him particularly attractive to the mob figures wasn't the sheer volume of violence. Again, it was his cold, unwavering professionalism when on the job. He didn't drink on contract. He didn't overtalk. He didn't make messes unless a mess was specifically requested in the contract's terms.
Unless a mess was
You
requested.
said on his way home from a hit, he shot a man at a stoplight.
But he wasn't
flipping him off.
Dude, he was professional.
But he's professional. Yeah.
That's like what happens in a movie. That's like the last part of a Quentin Tarantino movie is like the guy fucks up and shoots someone at a stoplight and then everybody dies. Like,
okay, but I want you to think about it for a second too. If we were to believe it's true, it is the 70s, right?
I will. Okay.
What evidence would anybody have of who shot him? There's no cameras on.
We know what day. We know what day. Mr.
Yeah, wouldn't there
whatever
be a
his
police
name is,
report of
was
a
killed.
dead body at a traffic stop?
We know the guy
Imagine
died.
there is a dead body in a time where there's so much violence in New York and so much more murder than there is right now. The 70s were not a great time in New York. There may have been a dead body that was shot in the head. They don't know who did it. Right?
I still have trouble believing that a man can walk up to a man in broad daylight in New York City in 1975 and kill them silently and efficiently with 2 knife strikes and
those was at night. Those were at night.
Doesn't matter.
The shot in the car, I think, was during the day. I think.
Shot in the car is out of the question. The shot of the car, I would kill him myself if I was a mob boss immediately. Mm-hmm. If I found out that anybody did that, I would never hire him again for any reason. Yeah.
Again, hold on to that. You are not wrong to doubt it, but I also would hesitate from telling yourself everything he's saying is a lie.
I don't think everything. I think there's enough evidence out there, and I've seen enough documentaries about this man. I think there's actually 5 about this guy. Where there may be more too, but for sure 5, maybe 6, but I believe he got put away killed a lot of people. I believe
but there's
he did.
Also weirdness in how he died and stuff. We'll talk about it.
It's just but
it just feels a little. You're all entirely correct to be how is he doing this? And also the mob's he's the guy. Yeah, it makes no sense. But approaching this from the narrative that is mostly around this man, this is what is believed, or at least this is the story that is told. Again, the reasons: he didn't drink on a job, didn't talk too much, didn't make many messes. Jesse, when you're unless requested, it's like if they were I want him to suffer. I want him to suffer before he dies. So
no, I get it. I just, it's a weird thing to be we requested extra mess.
Yeah. And he quickly learned that blood was kind of the primary constant concern, and he preferred methods that minimized it because it was messy. It left a lot of evidence. Blood was a problem.
That's every murder. Okay, never mind. I'll get to it in the weeds.
Well, remember, we talked about this last week, so much so that he learned the best way if he's going to kill somebody with the melee, a knife or whatever, was to use the knife in the back of the head and slip it into the brain for minimal mess if he was having to do it that way. Or a 22 caliber bullet, which he knew had a tendency to bounce around inside the skull, causing massive untraceable damage.
I know all about that. Trust me.
Yeah. So he'd be used methods that would be, there's no way, I don't think there's a way to get around making a mess, murdering somebody, unless you can maybe trick them into eating poison. But if your mob is I want you to shoot this guy, or I want you to stab this guy, and you need to do that without making a mess, I guess you need to figure that out. That was his big concern in a lot of his interviews. It was just hey, I make sure can leave a lot of evidence, couldn't have a big blood everywhere. And if the job called for suffering, or silence or surgical disappearance, he did it without question. Without
so what did he do? He walk around with a tarp and put it over a guy and then shoot him? And then like
if that's what it was called,
like
for,
picking up
or
like a shit out of the carpet. Like
a lot of it is like, somebody's driving, we're picking him up. He's sitting in the back and they're going somewhere. And as they're on their way, he stabs in the back of the skull without them knowing it's coming, kind of thing. And then because the car is technically driving to where they're going to drop the body off anyway. You got a mob guy driving. He's where he's going to do the killing. Guy gets in the side seat, comes around the side. Ice pick was one of the tools he'd use. His knife, that kind of thing. And I know. Yeah, exactly. All of a sudden you're like, and it's real. It feels real again. He would later tell the author, quote, "I feel nothing inside for any of them." We said this last week. Nothing. They had it coming and I did it. The only people I ever had any kind of real feelings for were my family. Those others, nothing. And I don't know about if he's even felt anything for his family other than people he could control and dominate over. His formal entry into the world of professional organized killing, according to his accounts, was significantly shaped by his association with Carmine Meatball Genovese. Remember Meatball? Meatball.
How could I forget?
Meatball Genovese. That's outrageous, dude.
He was a made man of the Cavalcante family. Was known less for his high rank and more for his extensive network and ability to get things done. The man was the man who knew people.
The what family?
Done? The Cavalcante family. The Cavalcante.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I thought you said the Capicola family, and I was no. Fuck off! Don't bring Gabagool into this.
The prosciutto mob over here.
Yeah, that's literally what I thought you said.
I gotta ask my mom again.
The Mozz mob.
I'm like a majority Italian, like 50-60% Italian. And I know, and I got to ask my mom, but I have family in Italy, mob and mafia that still alive, still exists. They're like third cousins, fourth cousins.
Like Cosa Nostra?
I don't know if it's like, I don't know. I don't fully know. I just know I've known in my own whole life. I have been told my whole life, if things get bad, I got told by my grandmother before she died, like years ago when I was a teenager, if things ever got bad and you need to leave, you can go to Italy, you could find them, and they would take care of you. I don't know what that means.
I love that.
I am so curious because I believe this fundamentally to my core, that much like guys who claim they've seen UFOs.
Sure. One and the same. You're looking at him.
On my best day, I'll give it a 1%. I feel that the same way with people who say I have a relative who's in the Italian mob.
Oh, for
Every time they're like, yeah, my grandmother told me, I'm like, Grandma just telling you stuff.
That's like every American who's like,
I need to, let me text my mom right now. And Dean can edit this.
Every single American person wants to say, I am from a European country. And they just say,
my grandmother literally came over from Italy.
Not all.
Like
not
my grandmother that came from Italy at 12 years old in 1914. Like she's straight from Italy.
I'm not contesting your familial line. I'm in a very similar boat, almost down to the year. My family came from probably like just across the water from Italy and Croatia. But I would never say I am a Croatian person. I have Croatian blood. I'm an American person.
Oh,
right?
For sure. I mean, I'm American who is Irish and Italian.
American people love to be like, I'm Italian. And it's like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
My family is guilty of that. My family cheers for the Italian team in the I was going to say in the Super Bowl, which just emphasizes what I'm saying. But the World Cup, and we like did a thing and we're like not even from Italy on that side.
I've never been to Italy in my life.
Yeah.
I'm not Italian in that way. I grew up eating Italian food. But that's it.
Who did it?
Close enough.
So we'll see.
Yeah,
anyway, here we go. We'll see if I ever get an answer for that. But that is.
I'm so interested. Yeah.
It's something I never really thought about too much. So yeah, he's working with Meatball. Meatball was a made man of the DeCavalcante family. The guy who knew people. If you wanted something done, you didn't go to Meatball to get it done. You went to Meatball to get somebody he knew that could get it done.
Meatball, he's a fixer.
Yeah,
he's got his meat in a lot of different pies.
Yeah. He's got a lot of meatballs in different sauces.
Yeah.
He had heard the street talk of Kuklinski, this big Polish guy who didn't flinch, didn't talk, never ever left a loose end. And after Kuklinski and his Coming Up Roses gang, if you remember, each tattooed with that a scroll coming up roses on the palm of their left hand.
The Coming Up Roses gang, where they had the chance to make a logo and they just made it a picture of paper that had words on it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's to the point. They're like, people are going to want to know who we are. Write it down.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like they had. What's the thing that we always say you have? You can't see the apple. That's what whoever made the logo.
Aphantasia.
Yeah, whoever made the logo has aphantasia. They were like, well, it's a piece of paper that says the name of the thing.
It gets to the point. Who are you? Oh, it's written right there.
Do you think they went to like an actual tattoo professional? Or you think they found somebody who did the tattoo cheap, like on the streets?
You think there was a professional they went to get a tattoo of a scroll?
I don't think so. Yeah,
never happened.
Can you put my gang scroll on my lower back, please?
No, left palm of his hand,
Oh
bro.
my God.
The palm of your hand is a weird place for any tattoo.
Whack, dude.
And I think I reversed this part of the timeline last episode. Let me readjust. Before he had to kill the two dudes who robbed the gang member, remember they did rob the card game? They first had a job where they were paid $500 each to go kill somebody. That's where somebody froze up, and then Richard Kuklinski grabbed the gun and said, I'll do it. He killed him. They went back to Meatball. Meatball gave him their money. He said, man, Rich, you're cold like ice. And another crew adding, cold,
Iceman.
cool. And another person in his gang said, quote, cool as a fucking cucumber.
Damn, man.
And Luke, the Iceman.
Yeah. It's very cinematic, huh?
You remind me of one of the founding members of Professor Xavier's X-Men.
Kuklinski's association, that's when Beast was a fleshy looking dude.
He was just a dude with big old parts.
Yeah. Kuklinski's association with Carmine Meatball Genovese following that initial hit marked the escalation in his criminal endeavors and started propelling him from just a street tough dude into a reliable, if unorthodox, asset for organized crime.
I can't handle Meatball Genovese. It sounds like fucking like a dish.
Yeah, it does. And it's kind of making me hungry. Meatball recognized Kuklinski's cold efficiency and his crew's weird capacity for violence, and so he began to channel a steady stream of lucrative but perilous work their way. And in this period, as Kuklinski recounted, was defined by a rapid influx of what he called easy money and a corresponding immersion into a high-risk, high-reward lifestyle that Kuklinski seemed to embrace with a careless nonchalance in the way he speaks in the book. Genovese, with his extensive connections throughout New Jersey, became more of like a conduit for major scores for him. He provided Kuklinski's and his Coming Up Roses crew with precise intelligence for sophisticated hijacking operations. This isn't like grabbing unattended cars. He was more supplied them with like crucial details, like specific trucks to get with their designated routes, the exact nature of the cargo, even the vehicle identification number sometimes, ensuring like a high probability of success and valuable plunder for the Coming Up Roses gangs. And under Genovese Meatball's direction, the crew successfully commandeered vehicles laden with like valuable goods. We're talking lists of things like appliances, jewelry, clothing, albums, razor blades, furniture, tools and machinery, even fancy foods like steak and loads of caviar. Anything that could be turned into hard cash really quickly was what they were taking. And they would get paid well for it. The financial arrangement was standard for this kind of underworld operating enterprise, where Carmine received a hefty 50% cut of all proceeds, with Kuklinski and his gang dividing the remaining half amongst themselves. So whoever gave him got half, they got the other half. And this, for them though, like 50-50 split. Do you remember becoming a YouTuber for the very first time? I remember my 60-40 split and being like,
oh, you had 60-40?
I had 60-40.
Yeah, I had 70-30, baby.
Oh,
shout out.
Fucker. No,
yeah.
I was part of Maker's like farming team, RPM, where they had like any YouTuber they could grab. But like when you go from making nothing for doing something that you enjoy, for Kuklinski, it's murder. But then you go making something, even if it's 50-50 or 60-40, it feels like an enormous upgrade and like an enormous amount of money. For him, this was a huge chunk of income. It allowed him to experience a level of financial comfort and indulgence this man had never known growing up poor and abused. And it was a stark contrast to his impoverished upbringing. He described this phase of his life with a phrase saying he was N-word rich. to show how racist the man was as well. This is like a term that he used, like accumulation of wealth. It's extremely racist, all of its connotations. That is how he described himself. The money earned through violence and theft was spent as quickly and as recklessly as it was made. He was a gambling addict. Surprise. Which became a huge drain on all of his money and a vice that would literally just shadow him throughout his entire life.
Again,
Kuklinski,
the riskiest possible behavior I can think of is gambling with large amounts of money.
yeah, no shit. Like, good God. He would, in a lot of his like retellings and interviews, he recounted like lavish trips to Las Vegas, sometimes just by himself, other times accompanied by his then live-in girlfriend, Linda. And there he would immerse himself in the high roller lifestyle. He would indulge in high stakes baccarat, which I don't really know what that is. What's baccarat? Is that
Baccarat is like one of the like casino games from like time immemorial. Like,
I've played a slot machine a few times.
it's like there's a player and there's a banker. You try to get to 9. It's the one with the paddle where they like pull the, you know.
I have no idea.
exactly
I only know
what
it
you're
from
talking
Bond
about.
movies.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
Okay, yeah.
they have
Yeah.
the like
So
wooden.
he's living a Bond villain-esque life in his mind. Going here doing this. But unfortunately, unlike Bond villains, he would, instead of winning all the time, he won rarely, but mostly just lost everything constantly. And obviously, when you're in Vegas, he was watching the extravagant shows. He loved Liberace with like, it was like one of his favorite shows to go see was Liberace. Yeah, it was one of his favorite things to go see. It became one of his favorite entertainers.
Is he like, does he have a soul? Is he like, I love Star Wars. I love The Godfather.
I mean, we did have a guy who
Eagles.
loved Star Wars so much he liked the like.
He didn't like Star Wars the film.
Yeah, that was
the
Dahmer.
man
Dahmer
liked
loved
chicken.
the Emperor.
Like, they're not
Dude,
robots.
listen, think about
they're
like not to
definitely
get
they're definitely multi-layered people. They're just cuckoo bananas.
like not to get political, but even Trump, our president, is a secret spicy little boy who loves musicals. He loves like Phantom of the Opera and he loves.
Trump loves Phantom of the Opera.
Yes. He's like a spicy theater boy who didn't get the love he needed or a hug from anybody.
What?
Like, and raised by like the worst possible people.
Hitler was an artist. Not a good one, but like an artist.
Exactly,
I mean,
right,
you know,
like, exactly.
people have layers, and you know, like Shrek, like a lot of sometimes those layers stink. Just it is what it is.
Exactly.
Maybe I am a serial killer.
For him, when he talked about this period in his interview with Carlo, he said, and I believe this because it makes sense coming from who he is. I had no idea what money was, and I spent it like water. I should have been investing it, buying property, and all I did was throw it away.
Oh, he's a millennial.
I was gonna say, like,
He loved his avocado toast.
dude, it's like going from poor to having money is like a shock, and I feel like people who go from that, never mind the serial killing aspect, usually go in one of two ways. They go massive spending spree. How many OG YouTubers did we see like descend after their relevancy never kind of kept up, and they descended into like, you know, working normal lives again because they didn't invest it. And those who took the money and then were so worried to spend it, just invested it all instead. Like, it feels like those are the two paths that happen when somebody who's never had money suddenly gets an influx of money.
Yeah.
And so he took the opposite path, go spend it and live rich. His spending wasn't limited to casinos. He just also developed a penchant for, like, as a lot of people who want to be in the mob do, just like this ostentatious clothing with like garish, expensive, flamboyant suits, like bright yellows, pinks. His wardrobe was very just like striking to look at. And keep in mind, you combine that with his towering height of like 6'6" and his broad shoulders and immense size. And
Invisible,
Kuklinski,
cold as
an
ice.
invisible man wearing the loudest clothes.
No, not even a sound. No one knew he was there. In his
but when you
bright
see him-
yellow shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And this is like, you know, this is the stuff he started wearing to where he was all the time anyway. The Hoboken and Jersey City smoke-filled bars
He's just
and
like
pool halls.
going getting lemon pepper wings all the time, drinking beers.
Now he's dressed in like gaudy fucking suits and that are like tailored to him and shit.
Oh my God, dude.
One of the more profitable, but more, I would say, audacious operations are orchestrated by Meatball for Kuklinski crew was like a very meticulously planned robbery of an armored truck company in North Bergen, New Jersey. Because this was like far from the simple stick up or other things that they've been getting so far. Meatball provided them with the alarm codes, to the locking system of the company's red brick warehouse to create a diversion and make the crime appear as something other than an inside job. The crews first broke a hole in one of the warehouse walls. Then they proceeded to blow open the main safe and began loading an armored truck with an immense haul of cash, coins, gold bullion. And their initial take was so substantial, estimated at $2 million worth of currency in gold, that they overloaded the first armored truck. And as they attempted to drive it out of the depot, the excessive weight caused its rear tires to blow out upon hitting a curb. And in a display of like just pure confidence under pressure, they were forced to just quickly transfer the massive loot into 2 additional armored trucks commandeered from the same depot. This risky transfer was completed hastily on the side of a road near the turnpike before they made their final escape. Carmine, as per their agreement, took half of the spoils, leaving Kuklinski and his 4 other crew members to divide the remaining $1 million. That's like at a staggering $200,000 each.
That's got to be over $10 million today.
Absolutely.
Because you said it's $2 million.
2 million then split in half, 1 million divided by 5, 200 grand.
I bet you it's
each.
like $10 to $15 million, something like that.
1970s, like say 1973 money, 75 money maybe. Yeah, something like that.
I bet you it's like that. Like that's an insane amount of money to split.
To anybody else, this would be it, dude. You'd be made. You're done.
I would be out.
I'd be out. For him though, like all previous other windfalls of money he'd gotten, was rapidly lost, primarily on gambling and maintaining that extravagant, extra high-flying lifestyle, but I would say it was mostly the gambling at that point. Other than just the lucrative hijackings, Meatball also began to entrust Kuklinski with more specialized and sinister tasks as time went on. This is where contract killings that often required not just clean elimination, but sometimes the deliberate infliction of suffering, or ensuring a body would vanish without a trace. For one such particularly gruesome job, the explicit instruction was that the mark had to suffer intensely before dying, and then the body had to disappear. And Meatball offered to double Kuklinski's usual payment for this one. The target was a used car salesman from Newark who had, according to the Genovese family, grievously disrespected a friend's wife. So Kuklinski recounted to Carlo, the author, how he abducted the salesman, subjected him to torture, and then, to a testament to the completed contract and the suffering inflicted, delivered the man's severed head in a plastic bag to a supposedly delighted Mr. Meatball.
Hey, what's the best way to save your dad jokes for later in a database?
Nice. Nice. Yeah, it was a good time for that, actually. Good time.
I was waiting to just get it in the chamber and then break it out before anybody noticed what happened.
Yeah, it did take me a second. I had to register. Meatball, Meatball, upon seeing the severed head, apparently said, "You son of a bitch, beautiful. You did good. Son of a bitch, you did good." And promptly paid him $10,000 cash for the job.
That's like $1 million bucks. Like $100,000, not $1 million.
Yeah, something like that. More than like this act, more than any other, I think, during this period of his activity, this is like what supposedly solidified Kuklinski's reputation within the Genovese circle, and now was becoming more aware in wider mob circles as a man who's uniquely capable of handling the depraved, demanding assignments with an unmatched, terrifying proficiency. And this story, if you remember, Tommy Patera is similar in the path that Tommy Patera kind of followed, in how he kind of got known before he became known for what he was good at and started working for multiple families, being very good at killing people. And the life Kuklinski described during his association with Genovese was one of just calculated violence that was sudden, that was paired with sudden and immense wealth, reckless, almost nihilistic expenditure, and a volatile existence lived on the blood-soaked fringes of organized crime. And I just attribute that quote to Philip Carlo because that's just beautifully written. And this is where his singular capacity for ruthlessness made him an increasingly valuable asset, if not profoundly dangerous, to the mob. He was also fast learning to navigate the kind of currents of this underworld as well. understanding that delivering results, especially in matters of extreme violence and intimidation, was the surest path to continued employment and the kind of fearful respect that money alone couldn't buy in these like brutal criminal circles. And over time, the jobs became more specialized, the requests even more sadistic. Meatball began to see Kuklinski as a unique tool now, not just for clean removals, but for inflicting punishments or sending brutal messages. For one victim named the Nutley victim, which was another early contract requiring extreme suffering, Kuklinski abducted the man in broad daylight. He employed a method that he would perfect over the years, posing as a motorist in distress, as we know. Ted Bundy did this. His car hood and trunk conspicuously open, and when the unsuspecting Mark rolled down his window to offer assistance, Kuklinski swiftly shoved a .357 Magnum to his head and forced him into the trunk of the car. Duct tape over the mouth, hands cuffed, and he was then transported alive and terrified to a remote cave in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Now, this is a story that's well known if you are remotely familiar with Richard Kuklinski at all, because this cave was no ordinary cave. Kuklinski, according to him, had stumbled upon it years earlier during a hunting trip after shooting a massive brown rat. Drawn by the scent of decay and the sight of numerous rat droppings, Kuklinski had found what he says was a narrow entrance at the base of a granite slope and followed it inward. What he discovered was a dark, foul, rat-infested warren littered with droppings and chewed bones, a natural charnel house, he said, deep in the Bucks County woods. The first time he saw it, he immediately recognized its potential for disposing of bodies. Later, he confirmed its grisly utility. He returned alone and left 2 pounds of ground chuck at the cave's mouth. And when he came back the next day, the meat was gone. Kuklinski was methodical, a scientist of death, remember, laboratory of murder, he called it. So he wondered if the rats, emboldened and numerous, would actually consume a human being. So he decided to make them unwitting accomplices in torture and murder, according to Kuklinski. He didn't have to imagine their capabilities for very long if the story is true. The victim from Nutley was handled with this gruesome innovation in mind. Abducted in broad daylight, gagged with industrial duct tape, and again bound at the hands and feet, he was then stripped of his clothes and left tied to the rear of the cave. Kuklinski, pretending to be a murder documentarian, I guess, of his own work, used a motion-activated light and camera setup, allowing him to capture every horrifying frame without actually being present. He described in the interview how the rats approached slowly at first, sniffing, circling the helpless man, then drawn by the scent of blood. And it's important to point out that Kuklinski often made small cuts on the victims to try and attract them. The rats then began to bite. And he said, quote, first his ears, then his eyes. Kuklinski then recounted before they swarmed, consuming the man alive slowly. Kuklinski retrieved the videotape and sat with the client to watch this footage, and he claimed the man was stunned, quote, overjoyed, yet slightly appalled, and handed over the full $20,000, 10 for the contract, and an additional 10 for the incredible suffering inflicted.
Hey, what do you call a French man wearing sandals? Philippe Philippe.
It's so stupid.
I don't even know what that means. Philippe, fuck you. You know what? No, that sucks. I hate that. I hate that. I hate that more than hearing the story of this guy who was brutally eaten by rats. That's how much I hate this.
Over the course of hours, alive, screaming, well, trying to scream, but his mouth taped shut, The client then apparently said, you did a good job, real good. And that job did more than add to Kuklinski's bank account. It really kind of just like sharpened his approach and cemented his reputation for handling now what he called special requests. Around this time, his association with Robert Prongay.
It's like OnlyFans vibes.
Yeah.
Send some underwear home with them. Say his name in the fucking video.
Kuklinski OnlyFans special request section.
This one's for you, David. Boom! Like, it's fucking awful, dude.
Around this time, Kuklinski's associate, dude, oh man, now I just want like, I'll write a skit about like a serial killer's OnlyFans
It's
that's
done.
just like
It's
chaos.
done. You can't do more than one joke. That's the whole joke.
Yeah. Like, you got to film it. It's like 60 seconds.
It's a vine. Yeah.
And then you hear like police sirens outside. Around this time, his association with Robert Pronge, who was kind of a hitman of his own repute, known as, his nickname was Mr. Softy.
That's weirdly like on theme. Okay, because first of all, Mr. Softy's ice cream if you're not from the East Coast, right?
And that is how he gets his name.
Yeah. But it's funny because he's like Iceman and he's Mr. Softy, and that's like vaguely in the same theme.
Yeah, sure.
They're like both ice guys.
That's because they were so cool.
Ice boys.
Yeah.
Robert Pronge was like somebody who would become an associate and then very quickly kind of became a friend and then more of like a weird evil mentor to Kuklinski and like a weird partnership of broken minds, because Pronge was a former Special Forces demolitions expert who used a Mr. Softy ice cream truck as a cover for his surveillance and murder for hire activities, and became a very steady source for Kuklinski's high-grade cyanide and other like more exotic killing tools. Pronge loved cyanide, and Kuklinski grew to love cyanide as well. Their paths initially crossed by sheer coincidence at a Marriott hotel in Queens, where both men were, unbeknownst to each other, were both there stalking separate marks. They were both in the same hotel.
Oh my God! Really? What are you? Oh, Iceman! What are you doing here,
What are you doing here, man?
Oh, fuck, are you Mr. Softy? I've heard so much about you.
Oh, you're the fucking ice cream guy, right? You're the fucking ice cream
this
guy.
sucks. Because the comedy version of this is they both show up and just like, we went on a date with the same girl kind of vibe, but it's like, we both have to kill him. Well, I got it. No, I have to do the hit, dude. And that's
literally this is literally a Sandman issue. This is like literally
I was just about to say.
Yeah.
So they were after separate people, and when they saw each other, and you're not even fucking wrong. When they saw each other, he knew Kuklinski and had heard about the rat cave method and loved it. He was super entertained.
He's like, you're the ice cream guy. He's like, are you rat cave? Oh, bam.
And so during their talk, they started sharing their own diddly innovations of like how they would kill people for a little bit. Pronge would show Richard how to wire a hand grenade for remote detonation, a device he would typically place under the driver's seat of a target's car, allowing for a kill with a wide destructive radius from a very safe distance. They exchanged other methods, which was significant, was like a mutual education in a homicide. Pronge taught Kuklinski the subtleties of administering poisons quietly and effectively. He explained absorption rates, volatile chemical reactions, and how to disguise delivery methods in drinks, food, and even via a cyanide spray using DMSO, which is dimethyl sulfoxide, as a rapidly absorbing solvent, a technique Pronge gruesomely demonstrated by killing a stray cat with a quick spray to its face. The two men, both psychopaths with a flair for the theatrics in their killings, spoke frequently about refining their craft, each feeding off the other's weird lack of conscience. Kuklinski accompanied Pronge on a hit in Connecticut, where Pronge successfully used the cyanide spray on the mark, and Kuklinski in turn took Pronge to witness another rat cave execution that he wanted to see so much.
Why am I picturing this like into the fire, taking it higher and higher? Like doing like fucking
it's like a montage
shit. He's like pouring the poison. He's like, no, bitch, pour it like this. And it's like
every once in a while, it's a cut to the both of them just walking with an ice cream they're eating, and there's like hearts flowering.
They're like
around
running
them.
in their basketball jerseys, and they like run over and kill somebody. Like it like feels like that. What you're telling me?
They wrap their arms and they share ice creams with each other.
They spent like one magical summer together, learning how to kill the Lost Weekend.
Apparently, after watching the videotape of the rat execution, Pronge just said, and just sat back, impressed, and said, "What a great fucking idea! What a great fucking idea!"
Sickos. They're Batman villains. What are we talking about here? Hey, you remember when we were out there working on that thing for the Joker? Yeah, that guy was crazy, huh? Oh yeah. Hey, what are you gonna do if you ever see the Bat? I don't know. I don't think he's real.
It's genuinely insane and crazy, but at the same time, it's almost like if you just meet another person who streams,
Loves Doctor Who.
or like you're
inside
curious
baseball all
about
the
their
time.
process.
Yeah, he's just like inside baseball constantly, which makes it kind of feel like it's a little real. Like maybe that, like it feels
Honestly,
real in that
this is
regard.
the one thing I genuinely believe, because it's like, wait, you take them out to the rats? Yeah. You want to see? You want to show me? Yeah, let's go. And they just go out to the rat cave.
Because who can he share this with? Even his own company.
That's what I'm saying, is
doesn't
it's-
like this kind of thing.
People
Like, he
won't
finally found
understand.
somebody.
And he found the one guy who would.
Are you gonna fucking kill me? Yeah, you got me. Hey, I was gonna fucking kill you too. Hey!
Yeah.
Just an update. My mom's like, remembers the names of the people, but she has to, when she gets home, she's going to look up the last name because she can't remember the last name off the top of her head, but she has birth certificates at home.
She's like, Kuklinski.
She's gonna find out.
Yeah.
It's like finding somebody who can finally understands you in your weird, fucked up, twisted way.
What if you're Mathis Meatball Genovese in real life?
That would, who do I get? Who am I the connections of though? If I'm Meatball and I got connections to everything, who am I connected with?
I don't know. I'm just saying, what if your mom hits you back and she's like, your grandfather is Meatball Genovese?
I will.
I don't.
This will all be edited out. And the only thing left will be a hint that something weird. Now Pronge and Kuklinski are kind of like tootling each other. Is that a word?
Tootling?
Tutelage, like tutoring each other.
Tutoring.
Tutoring is not the word.
They're tootling each other, man.
Teaching.
I don't-
Learning.
You know what?
Hanging
I don't
out.
want to get involved in this anymore. They're going to come for you. You said we was tootling each
Anyway,
other?
these two dangerous hitmen were in the woods tootling each other at the rat shack.
Unlike Tommy Patera, Iceman's dead, so we don't have to worry about
Yeah, Iceman probably. Like, what about the other guy? Is he dead?
What about Meatball? What about Mr.
Yeah,
Softy?
I don't want to be
He's
involved.
gonna be Mr. Angry. That's what he's gonna be.
Pronge and Kuklinski were teaching each other, supplying each other, and Kuklinski began to incorporate poisons into his repertoire. Always keeping cyanide on him now from this point on. He had it in vials. He had it specially prepared injectors for him. Used it on jobs that required subtlety, speed, or the appearance of a natural death. That's the other thing too. If this is true and how he killed people, how would anybody know? Is it possible? If he's killing people with cyanide in a way like you spray them, it's absorbed through the skin, all these things, would it be possible to detect that in this time, in the 70s, in an autopsy? Because that's the other part of like the evidence is like, does that leave evidence? Does cyanide poisoning?
You would feel like it's not
evidence leave a lot. I'm not doing evidence. I'm not doing this to get caught.
I don't think this is one of those things where, like, in the movies, where, like, it's undetectable.
Quickly.
No one will ever know. I feel like cyanide, you would know if it was in the system of a person who was killed with it, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like, there are still ways to detect it. Okay.
Yes, it's detectable.
So postmortem blood samples can lose significant amount of cyanide concentration within 24 hours. It's not that it's not impossible to detect it, but it becomes very difficult to detect it after 24 hours.
That's fucking crazy. This is like this is the type of shit where I'm like, did we just tell a serial killer how to do it? Did we just share that information?
I don't think that we are the ones that have discovered cyanide is very effective.
Not discovered, but we did say it on this big podcast, and now
I didn't say it. I think you're still going to get detected.
I think maybe
it's
even
not 1975. Don't fall for this.
I agree. Don't. There's still ways. Like reading it, there says there's still ways now. I'm talking about in the 70s specifically. How like what do you call it? What's the word? Like the technology at the time. How sophisticated is the word I'm talking about? Is the technology at the time?
I have no idea
to detect that because that's the time frame we're really looking at this for.
That's where we go to the. If you are a crime scientist
or a scientist at all,
please come to the Reddit and let
crime
us know.
assist,
please.
Crime assist,
Chilluminatipod@gmail.com. Also, throw us an email if you know, like, I would love to know the science that I don't know.
Yeah, while you're over there paying for Alex's new stairs, let us know what's going on.
I didn't have to pay for those. I'm going to tell my fucking landlord he owes me rent for canceling a week and a half of my work.
Regardless, cyanide meant there was no blood, no noise, just a person that would collapse suddenly, often mid-conversation or during a quiet stroll, according to Kuklinski. He later claimed to Philip Carlo in the book that he would sometimes slip cyanide into hamburgers or sandwiches, sit across from his target in a diner, and casually watch them die while sipping his coffee.
Damn.
He said he employed this method precisely with a Genovese soldier by the name of Billy Manna in a Union City bar, poisoning his drink with cyanide from a pinky-sized vial while Manna was in the restroom. When he returned, finished his drink, and collapsed, his death was attributed to a heart attack. And according to the author, Kuklinski also began to systemically freeze some of his victims, sometimes for months or even years, like one victim by the name of Louis Mazge, who was kept in an ice-cold well for nearly 2 years to obscure the actual time of death. And this is what supposedly earned him his moniker, the Iceman, from other investigators. Because the Iceman nickname comes from investigators, as we'll learn later. He utilized a horrifying, diverse arsenal now with that cyanide. We've talked about the ice picks through the ear or eyeball, knives for swift throat cuts or precise stabs to the brain, tire irons, crossbows, and even he'd burn people alive. He claimed to have burned one victim alive in a 55-gallon drum. Another was reportedly fed to rats while still alive. This is a third additional one. He said he used hand grenades, strangled men with piano wire, and crushed skulls with hammers. But many of these claims, particularly the more theatrical ones, were, shall we say, difficult for authorities to verify independently during his initial period of activity. But the ones that could be corroborated did paint a kind of horrifying portrait of a uniquely versatile and remorseless killer. And that's where the arguments of what's real and what isn't come from. He was definitely methodical, organized, and for a long time, obsessively careful. He developed a habit of never using the same weapon for more than one killing. As soon as a gun was used, he disposed of it, often by dropping it into a creek or river. He also claimed to sometimes use different caliber weapons on a single victim to create the illusion of multiple shooters, further confusing investigators. He also maintained a strict but twisted professional code. No women, no children. He killed only men, usually those involved in criminal dealings, though I don't, with the way he talks about his story.
Or anybody who says shit to him on the street.
Yeah,
right.
according to him.
You had to have earned it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The only exception to this rule was personal threats, he said. If someone endangered his family or directly, gravely disrespected him,
right, like driving, you don't want to cut him off, he could die.
Yeah,
sure.
There's that serial killer rationale right there. Mm-hmm. Then they became fair game. He once beat a man senseless in a parking lot simply for hitting his own children, an act of absolute hypocrisy that was just clearly him finding an excuse to hit somebody.
He probably saw it and got activated by his own trauma.
Got triggered, absolutely. Yeah. And this supposed rigid personal rule, however perverse, told him, at least in his mind, helped him stay detached and providing a thin, if not porous boundary between the contract killer and an uncontrollable, indiscriminate psychopath. Though I would say there is none. It's the same thing. There is no line there. As Kuklinski's name and his unique skill set became even more widely known in mafia circles, he was eventually introduced to Roy DeMeo, a fearsome soldier in the Gambino crime family who ran one of the most notorious brutal murder operations in American history. DeMeo's crew, operating with an insane chilling efficiency akin to Kuklinski, out of the Gemini Lounge in Brooklyn, which is where Tommy Patera would go, specialized in making bodies disappear, often dismembering them in a back room dubbed the slaughterhouse before disposing the pieces across the borough. Again, this name may sound familiar because he was a big name in the Tommy Patera series as well. The initial encounter between Kuklinski and DeMeo was far from amicable as well. Kuklinski owed DeMeo's associates, Tony Agrilla and Paul Rothenberg, a significant sum for pornographic films that he had taken on consignment. And when Kuklinski was slow to pay...
What?
We'll get in there.
He had a porn debt?
So
what do you mean?
Kuklinski ran...
He filmed the porn or he just collected porn?
He bought porn on consignment?
Kuklinski ran a illegal porn selling operation. And so he would take and get stuff from others and sell it as the man who's selling it.
Yeah, like a pawn shop of porn.
Like a Ponzi scheme. You have to buy your supply from them, sell yours off and then you pay him back and keep the profit. But if he was selling porn and couldn't sell enough to pay him off, he was now in debt and also had porn that he couldn't sell. Because it's the 70s.
This alone is
different.
an argument. This alone is an argument to like add so much legal protection to the real porn industry.
No shit. Yeah.
This is crazy to me.
But here's the other thing too, is like whether you believe Kuklinski did actually work as deeply in the mob family as he claims, he did sell porn in their territory. And that alone is usually, unless you're working with or somehow in conjunction with those who run that territory,
tied up with them at least in some way.
You would get sent a warning, you get sent out, you get killed, depending on like how the fraction of it. And it would, and this is true. We know for a fact he had a porn industry, he was selling within the territory of the mafia, and he wasn't ever kicked out for it. There is evidence that he did at least come in contact with some of the mob with like a camera shot that we have and a couple things. But like, this is part of it that muddies the waters as well. And, yeah, he owed people because that's how it works. If you're working in the mob and you're running a porn industry, you're going to get the supply.
It's like drugs.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
So, and Kuklinski was slow to pay and displayed what DeMeo perceived as a quote unquote bad attitude. Because DeMeo, then accompanied by his cousin Joe Guglielmo, nicknamed Dracula. And
fucking ridiculous.
What did he do?
Hey,
he just drank blood?
Didn't go into it.
Or did he look like Nosferatu? Like he was really skinny.
You know what it probably is? I bet you he doesn't like garlic.
Ooh, that's good.
Let's see. Do we have Dracula was his cousin?
Oh, and you just
cousin.
know. You can like imagine the Goodfellas scene where he's like, "You guys put too much garlic in the sauce," and he's like, "What are you, Dracula?
Yeah, what are you, Dracula?"
And everyone's like, "Hey, Dracula!" Crazy.
I'll believe that that's the reason it happened. Yeah, his cousin.
Otherwise,
Dracula,
it's too weird. Otherwise, now he's like, I drink blood.
Dracula is a audacious nickname. I think
know.
That's like naming yourself like the Batman who laughs. It's like a little too edgy.
Yeah,
it's like a little too edgy.
So he was accompanied by three cousins. That Dracula. Then the other two didn't have nicknames. Anthony Center and Joey Testa. The four of them confronted Kuklinski at a gorilla in Rothenberg's office. DeMeo apparently pistol whipped Kuklinski severely, and his crew joined in, beating the shit out of Kuklinski. Though Kuklinski was armed with a .38 Derringer and wisely chose not to draw it against such overwhelming force, a decision that ironically earned DeMeo's grudging respect later when he learned Kuklinski had been armed, yet took the beating, quote unquote, like a man. So he took his punishment like a man. And then, that was enough to give him his respect. But for Kuklinski...
Nice stable working relationship.
Yeah, well, this, for Kuklinski, planted a seed that he never let go. And that resentment sat in him forever. And he vowed to himself that he would one day kill DeMeo. Regardless, despite this brutal introduction...
Because he bought so much porn...
And he owed him money and he never paid him back.
So it's like a completely legitimate gripe. He wasn't betrayed or sold out in any way. He just bought more porn than he could handle.
Mm-hmm. And he couldn't pay him back.
And now this guy is he's going to kill a man over it.
The idea of he bought more porn than he could handle is hilarious to me. There is layers of puns there that are just out of control. The more I think about it, the more like, that's another good joke. That's also a good joke.
Can't handle it.
What if the reason Kuklinski couldn't sell it all is because he was like the OG gooner? He wasn't selling. He was just using it. I would have to imagine porn purchased through the mob by a guy selling it in a pyramid scheme isn't like what you go to the Cineplex to see. It wasn't like the things you think of 1970s erotica. It was probably like,
Cineplex.
We filmed this. You know what I'm like, during the 70s, there were cinemas that you would go to.
Sure.
To like full on goon.
Yes.
And, but those would be the ones that were like, you would see in like boogie nights. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like 5 folding chairs in like a tile floor room with a projector and you pay $5 to get in.
Like that's a different beast compared to, I imagine this was like, this is probably not cool. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that
here's-
the ladies involved really had much say in what was going on in these films.
Here's a little, this is all from an article I just pulled up. It says, members of the mafia had been making a modest income by producing stag films for at least 10 years.
Right.
Up until 1971, when associates of the Colombo organization, one of the 5 mafia families in New York City, hit the jackpot after producing an enormously successful X-rated comedy filmed mostly in a motel in Biscayne Boulevard in North Miami. The movie cost less than $25,000 to produce, but within a couple of years, the mob had raked in a staggering $50 million in
Like
profit.
a legit hit, like a
Damn.
major motion picture, like a
It's still illegal.
nationwide release.
No, because this would kick off the back and forth fight between the FBI and the mob's porn industry.
So it's not even, we're not even talking about bootlegs. We're talking about like artisan illegal porn that the mafia was
I mean,
making.
By the mid 80s, I don't know if porn was legal or not, but right here it says by the mid 80s, 85% of the porn industry was controlled by organized crime.
I believe that for sure.
Absolutely.
I would say that it might still be the same today. Just the actors have changed. If that makes any sense. Like it isn't.
Yeah.
It isn't
Yeah,
the
for
organized
sure.
crime we're thinking of. I'm thinking of like Russian,
Yeah, like snuff
like
films and
Eastern
shit.
European
Yeah, now it's-
organized
yeah,
crime. Yeah.
I wonder what it was like in the 70s, though. Like, I think it would probably be more normal.
Video is so devalued
No.
today compared to where it was in the 70s.
No, I would say if you want a real trip, go back and watch the like early cinema erotic films. They are,
Like Deep
I mean,
Throat.
like
Yeah.
visually they look old, but hilariously, it's
No, they're
still
just
pretty raunchy.
same stuff.
comparatively.
Yeah, I got it.
You're like, oh no, tastes have not changed. We were always weird.
Yeah, like nobody's like, there's that though, but then there's also like a fucking snuff film, right?
Yes,
Like,
yeah.
By the way, the guy who stole my diary went missing.
What?
Yeah, my thoughts are with his family.
Oh.
Yo, can we get back to
I
the
did
can we
too.
back to
I
the
was like,
murder
what is
rats? Can we get
happening?
back to the
What
murder
happened?
rats? Because that was that was less depressing than that joke.
After DeMeo beat the fuck out of Kuklinski.
He's just staring at the camera, and it only plays to people watching. And I hate it. I hate
A
it.
special Patreon treat for everybody. If you want to see video, patreon.com/Chilluminati, join us at the $20 tier. Where you get video of everything we do. He vowed to kill DeMeo, but regardless, this abusive introduction, this started to form a twisted working relationship between the two. DeMeo recognized Kuklinski's capacity for violence and his apparent fearlessness and decided to test him further. In a now more infamous anecdote, we'll call it, DeMeo took Kuklinski for a ride in Manhattan. He supposedly handed him a .38 with a silencer, and DeMeo randomly pointed to an innocent man walking a dog and ordered Kuklinski to cap him. Quote unquote, cap him. Without hesitation, Kuklinski calmly exited the car, walked up to the unsuspecting man, shot him in the back of the head, and returned to the vehicle as if he had merely run an errand.
Again, you're telling me that this happened, and we're not going to see any evidence that a man was shot in the back of the head in New York City. No police report at all.
We will talk about it. We will talk about what evidence is there. I'm not going to get there yet. We're going to get through the story first. DeMeo was reportedly impressed at this, declaring, quote, "You fucking cold like ice. Well done."
I'm going to call you the Iceman after all those guys have been calling you the cool guy for all this time.
The cool guy.
So you're telling me all these people his whole life, like cinematically, are referring to him as like cold, cool,
Supposedly.
chill. And then the FBI is like, you know who you are? You're the Iceman.
At least not up
You're
to
the
this
fucking
point.
Iceman.
He's not Iceman yet up to this point.
He's not Iceman. He's just Bobby still.
This is the act that supposedly cemented Kuklinski's status as an asset to DeMeo. Now, whether this specific dramatic initiation happened exactly as Kuklinski described is, like many of the stories here, hard to confirm with absolute certainty. But what it does align with is it aligns perfectly with DeMeo's known character and methods of operation. DeMeo was pathologically violent, cunningly smart, and a deeply paranoid man, and he ran one of the deadliest mafia crews in New York's history. This is not an argument. This is not to be argued. Bodies vanished from the Gemini Lounge with an almost industrial efficiency, and the crew referred to the dismemberment process clinically as just disassembling. That was their word for it. And according to law enforcement estimates, DeMeo's crew may have been responsible for over 200 murders. This is DeMeo's crew from the actual law enforcement people.
Like real, verified, connected crimes.
Because that's what...
How many people?
Again, this is a time where organized crime dominated.
How many people is he running this operation with?
We don't have a specific number, but like at least 5 or 6 people.
Including Tommy Karate.
Well, Tommy Karate didn't... Again, he worked with... He was more into... He was like Kuklinski.
He's his own guy.
Karate kind of worked for multiple families, but he was actually part of the mob.
Oh, so
Kuklinski.
Tommy Karate, he was out... People would outsource crime to him. Yeah. And this guy was in and only did crimes for the family unless he just kind of wanted to.
Yeah, he very much like Tommy Patera, DeMeo seemed to be a serial killer with the perfect job. He loved the violence, so he got his hands dirty all the time. He loved it. DeMeo had an intense paranoia, which meant he kept a very tight, trusted inner circle. So the fact that Kuklinski, an outsider, was utilized by him at all, even if strictly off the books for very specific tasks, meant that he had proven himself in some way that
by taking that beating with the 38 in his pocket.
Yeah, like taking that beating literally for whatever reason was significant and left an impression. And Kuklinski asserted that he became DeMeo's quote unquote secret weapon, the go-to man for hits that required absolute deniability or that needed to occur outside Gambino territory where DeMeo's crew might be recognized. And that much, as if you remember Tommy Patera, is true. Other crime families were not to encroach or hit on other crime families. If somebody in another family did something wrong, you go to the head of the other family first and you report it to them and allow the family to take care of it. Because you don't want, if you take out another family member, another family member without approval, you immediately risk war between the two families. And that is a bad thing for the mafia.
We've seen The Godfather.
Yeah. And it's all based on, like this stuff. And Kuklinski, so Kuklinski wasn't part of DeMeo's Gemini crew. Never mind his non-Italian heritage, which precluded him from ever being a made man.
We've seen Goodfellas.
I have not seen any of those.
Really?
But yes.
Both fantastic films.
I've heard. This status, though, made him uniquely useful. He existed in the shadows as a nobody, a phantom killer that nobody could actually point to. He claimed it was DeMeo who ended up recognizing his utility and discretion, also would go on to connect him with other crime families, significantly expanding his workload across all 5 boroughs and into New Jersey. And so Kuklinski claimed to have done dozens of jobs for DeMeo, though none were ever formally documented or directly linked by law enforcement during DeMeo's reign.
So he wasn't so much DeMeo as he was DeBread.
Yeah, and it's not even, but there's like DeMeo and the other issue is like, I got what you're saying. I'm just trying to move forward.
Yeah, no, keep going. Let's move past it. Let's move past it.
The thing is like in a lot of DeMeo's interviews and like what we know about him with others, Kuklinski he never brings up Kuklinski. He doesn't even like mention as like ever known. And the question is it because he never had anything to do with it and they're all denying it because of that? He literally was very minimally involved.
Do you think you want to be the best?
He was not tied, and then if they admit that, yes, the Kuklinski did these things, then they immediately implicate DeMeo and other people, which could have gotten them prison time or something. I don't know. It feels to me more like DeMeo maybe was less involved in Kuklinski's life than Kuklinski let on. But as we go and talk about it, maybe that'll make, you'll feel similarly. He referred to another very violent episode that was supposed to illustrate his association, involved a trip to Harlem, his association with DeMeo, and it involved a trip to Harlem. DeMeo dispatched Kuklinski with his crew member, Freddie DeNome, and an associate from the Westies gang, Eddie Mack, to collect a debt from a black bar owner. When Mack entered the bar alone and was subsequently shot, Richard and DeNome and Mack returned to the West Side, armed themselves heavily, and Richard choosing a street sweeper shotgun, while DeNome and Mack grabbed Mac-10 machine pistols. They drove back to Harlem. Richard was the first through the door, unleashing a barrage from the shotgun, with the others firing their automatic weapons, effectively blowing the entire bar apart and killing several people inside. DeMeo was reportedly pleased with his brutal efficiency, further solidifying the value of Kuklinski and giving him even more jobs. Another incident Kuklinski recounted involved a fishing trip with DeMeo and his core crew, namely Chris Goldberg, Joey Testa, Anthony Center, and Joe Dracula.
Just boys hanging out. Boys hanging out on the river with Dracula.
Yeah, that's it. Boys and Dracula going fishing.
Dracula and the Iceman hanging out.
And out on DeMeo's boat in the Atlantic, a man named nothing other than Bob, suspected of being an informant to the cops, was confronted by DeMeo, shot in the face, and then thrown overboard, still alive. The crew, including Kuklinski, watched then as sharks, attracted by the blood, converged and then devoured the man who, according to Kuklinski, screamed until he was like until the last moment and then dragged under the water.
Oh, that reminds me. Why couldn't the produce manager make it to work on time? The answer is he could drive, but he didn't avocado.
That's so God. I had to think about that one. I don't know why. I just did. I hate it. Kuklinski just described the scene with a detached amusement, noting that DeMeo and his men found it entertaining, great fun, better than any Broadway show. Despite this claimed collaboration and mutual utility, Kuklinski also still contained and harbored that deep-seated fear and resentment of DeMeo ever since that time he was beat the fuck up. He respected DeMeo at this point, respected his capacity for violence and his criminal acumen, but he knew men like Roy didn't leave loose ends. The initial beating DeMeo had given him, and a later incident where DeMeo, in a fit of paranoia, or maybe another test, pointed a cocked Uzi machine gun at Richard's chest in the Gemini Lounge while his crew stood by, and this incident festered in Kuklinski's mind and continued to fuel his desire for revenge. He basically pointed the gun at him and wasn't sure if he was a rat or not. Can he be trusted or not? Threatened to kill him, didn't kill him, laughed it off like a crime movie would.
Right.
And later, as DeMeo's own criminal empire began to implode around him under intense internal pressure and relentless FBI scrutiny, DeMeo himself became a massive liability to the Gambino family. And so, Kuklinski claimed to have distanced himself after he started spiraling, and he always insisted to the interviewer that if he had ever felt DeMeo was going to come for him, he would have struck first. And ultimately, DeMeo, increasingly erratic and paranoid, was found murdered in January of 1983, shot multiple times in the head, and stuffed in the trunk of his Cadillac. Kuklinski, in his interviews with the author, took credit for DeMeo's murder, describing it as a preemptive strike and an act of long, simmering revenge that he carried out after DeMeo seemed to be cracking under pressure and potentially becoming an informant himself.
He just went and killed him.
Yep. He said this is the time because he was spiraling. The families were, he was very clearly losing things. He was under investigation by the FBI. This was the time to kill him.
I just feel like if you're going to kill like the highest ranking assassin in the mafia, you can't just fucking go do that. I can't.
I mean, there's rules, and if all the bosses agree, I guess then like you can.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to me like how Tommy Karate was like a Jedi compared to this guy. Like,
oh yeah,
like let's not say a Jedi, but like a monk. Like he was like he had a code that he followed that was like not just no women, no children, but like, if somebody asks me to do something, I'm going to do it and like, carry it out. And anything that happens to me as a result of like the rules of the game, that's fair play.
Yeah.
I feel like this guy is not thinking like
principle that he followed that Kuklinski pretends to have.
Yeah, but it feels like he just gets revenge and is impetuous and is impulsive. Yeah,
a whiny child. Their relationship between DeMeo and Kuklinski was purely working, and if Kuklinski's accounts are to be believed, had always been purely transactional, that he was never part of his crew, that he was the ghost they hired when things got too hot or too complicated, which is why DeMeo would never mention him. And at home, in a quiet suburb of Dumont, New Jersey, Kuklinski was still trying to meticulously cultivate an entirely different, almost antithetical image of who he was. He lived with his wife, Barbara, and their 3 children, Merrick, Kristen, and Dwayne, in a split-level house on a peaceful, tree-lined street. And from the outside, their life appeared fine. Epitome of suburban normalcy, I guess. Neighbors saw him taking out trash, mowing the lawn, attending Sunday masses, where he even served as an usher and volunteering to coach his daughter's softball team. To most observers, this dude was just a big, quiet guy who kept to himself with a devoted family and seemingly deep pockets and a reserved, almost shy demeanor. But obviously, we all know inside the walls of the Kuklinski home, the reality was starkly, terrifyingly different. He was a brooding shadow, a volatile storm that would just snap at any instant. And while he never laid a hand on his children in anger, a rule he had adhered to with honestly a strange principle to it. He didn't do it. The atmosphere within the house was still perpetually thick with fear. Everybody was just on edge at all times. His daughters, Merrick and Chris, vividly remembered how their mother, Barbara, would anxiously watch the door every day around 5 o'clock. Her body would tense, freezing when she heard the sound of his car pulling into the driveway. The shift in the air was always immediate, always palpable. And Barbara herself later recounted that the entire emotional climate of the house would change in mere seconds. If he walked in smiling, it might be a peaceful evening. If he didn't, the smallest, most insignificant misstep, a cluttered room, dinner being served too late, a perceived wrong tone in conversation, whatever, could send him into a terrifying, just angry, physically destructive rage. He would break furniture, smash cherished possessions, even in one instance that they recounted, tear newly installed kitchen cabinets directly off the wall and hurl them to the sink, hurled the sink through a window. He pulled the sink out.
That's just asinine at that point.
Yeah, it's just pure, toddler level violence in the form of a 6 foot whatever humongous violent man.
Yeah, guys, I don't think this was a good person.
Whoa, fuck!
I'm just starting to get. I'm getting that impression.
Hold on.
Oh, the man who was friends with Meatball and Mr. Softy.
Something
Meatball,
about
Mr. Softy, and Dracula's friend Iceman.
I know. It seems crazy, but
well, let's keep reading because maybe he just is actually a good guy.
Oh, that would be crazy.
You know what? I'm not going to bet on that.
Oh, actually, over here, there was rarely a discernible warning, just a sound. A weird clicking out of the sound of his mouth would mean he's going to get violence. Oh yeah, he's not a good guy, huh? No, the clicking of his mouth still very much prevalent. And obviously, Barbara bore the brunt of his explosive temper and his need for complete control in the home. He beat her. He systematically dominated her, eroding all autonomy she had. She had no independent access to money unless he doled it out to her directly. She couldn't drive the car anywhere without his explicit permission and an interrogation about her destination and purpose. He would track her grocery receipts, demanding explanation for any perceived discrepancies, which is rich coming from the man who gambled their money away every opportunity. If she came back $5 short, there would be severe consequences. If she seemed too quiet or withdrawn, he'd accuse her of hiding something, his paranoia just constantly flaring. She lived in a state of constant preemptive hypervigilance, her days spent just constantly calculating how to avoid triggering his next violent eruption. And amidst the reign of terror, there were weird, and this is where a lot of abuse and where it feels like coming trapped comes from, weird moments of, I will say, perceived tenderness of what she called, quote unquote, the good Richard. He would surprise her with expensive perfume, lavish jewelry, or maybe a favorite bottle of a Montract wine. He nicknamed her Lady and would sometimes arrange for Kenny Rogers songs of the same name to be playing when they entered their favorite restaurants, a table adorned with fresh red roses already waiting. And sometimes, after a very violent or vicious outburst, he would then break down, cry, and beg her forgiveness, or in a weird, bizarre display of self-punishment, knock himself unconscious by repeatedly banging his head against a wall in an apparent attempt to stop himself from beating her. And Barbara often said it was like being married to two distinctly different men, one a monster and the other a surprisingly gentle, even romantic figure. That's just called narcissism, baby. That's all that is narcissism and mental illness.
Yeah.
This is pure control. If you're listening to this right now, I'm not saying you are, but I'm surprised how many people listen to our podcast sometimes. And this rings any bells. that good person is not real. It's a mask worn in hopes to keep you around and not get you to leave and to keep you trapped in a cycle.
Oh, you mean the classic, if you leave me, I'll kill myself? That's
not exactly. As somebody who went through that,
you know, the classic.
That stuff, you can't let that rule your life. You just can't. But like, this is the extreme example of it, but I can see this, like, this is coming from her. So this is not Kuklinski's telling of this part of the story. Like, this is stuff that her and her kids saw. Regardless of the terror they all felt, Barbara stayed, like most people in abusive relationships do. She tried to leave him once early on in their marriage, actually. And this is the story I told last time, where she flew and fled off to Florida. But to remind you, she ran to Florida to her father, and Kuklinski tracked her ass down, took her back to New Jersey, and then beat her so severely she ended up miscarrying a child that she was carrying at the time and was unable to move for 4 days straight.
I made a song one time about a tortilla, but now that I think about it, it's actually more like a rap.
Can we get some crickets edited in?
Cut away for 4. What an innings, what a player.
After that brutal lesson, she stopped trying to escape. The fear, she explained to the author, and when she was being interviewed, became a constant, a background noise that they just had to learn to live with, which just never went away. At the dinner table, he was capable of calmly asking about their school day and complimenting Barbara's cooking in the same breath that he might threaten to burn the entire house down if he felt disrespected. He could transform from laughing at a sitcom with his children to standing silently and menacingly at the window for hours, convinced he was being watched by unseen enemies.
That's my downstairs neighbor from like 10 years ago.
Well, shit. This stark contrast of his carefully curated home and his brutal profession didn't just coexist. If true, they seemed to just feed off each other, reinforce each other. The more violent and dangerous his work became, the more rigid, controlling, and unpredictable at home became. And as Kuklinski's clandestine career as a contract killer, flourished and his double life intensified.
Why'd you say really quietly to yourself right there?
The alliteration.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Kuklinski's clandestine career as a contract killer.
I was there.
Man.
I heard it. I just wanted to highlight that you did that.
I'm just proud of myself.
I get that.
His own, made me lost.
I'm sorry. You can take it again. I'm sorry.
His double life intensified, and so I would say his like personal mythology kind of rose in tandem.
Like in his own mind.
Because
his own shit started to smell pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. So much so that he began to spin tales so grandiose, so outrageously over the top that even his seasoned like criminal peers reportedly raised their own eyebrows when they were working with him. Like one instance he claimed, and this is one of the ones people point to as like, he is a pathological liar. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. But he claimed, for instance, that he was the one responsible for the disappearance and murder of the infamous Teamsters boss, Jimmy Hoffa.
And
he did it. He said it was him. According to Kuklinski's accounts, he shot Hoffa in the head and then transported the body from Detroit to a New Jersey junkyard in the trunk of a car, where it was then placed in a 55-gallon drum, set on fire, and finally the drum containing Hoffa's remains was crushed in a car compactor and then shipped to Japan as scrap metal.
I would imagine this is the most dangerous thing you could say. As someone, because clearly someone out there did the hit. It's the most infamous one.
In prison. This came from his interviews, just to give more context before you go on, Jesse. This came in later interviews after he'd already spent years in prison. Then he admitted to this, supposedly.
All right. Still not. You know what?
Did he have a new special coming out?
yeah, the HBO interview.
The third one.
He does a ton of them, man. Just so you know. Law enforcement officials and Hoffa investigators said they found no evidence to corroborate this claim. The question is, would there be? I don't know. They never found Jimmy Hoffa, right? Like, never found any.
Sure. No, it's a huge mystery.
Famously, they just made a movie about it recently with fucking young old Robert De Niro.
One of the other things that's often pointed out as one of the reasons that like it's a lie is because he killed him and then drove the body super far away. And if there was such a big lake nearby, why didn't they just use that lake? But to me, that feels like, I mean, there are other reasons to doubt the story, but wouldn't the reason be so the body is never found? Like, you would expect them to look, if this Teamsters guy, like Jimmy Hoffa is a huge name. If they are going to like get rid of him, why would you put him in a lake they are undoubtedly going to search in anyway? Wouldn't be the most clean way to get rid of him is to kill him and take his body so far away that where they are is not even bothered to be looked.
I mean, it checks out the rat guy that he would be this methodical in the whole thing. However,
Agreed.
I still don't like.
Oh, agree. I'm not saying it's worth buying. I just don't know if that argument to me holds up as strongly as people seem to think it does.
Sure.
I just like with stuff like Jimmy Hoffa, right? It's like, why not at that point? Like if you're in jail, right? And you're making money or whatever he's doing to like agree to do these, like tapes or whatever he's doing, the Iceman tapes or whatever they were called. Mm-hmm. Like it was like a decade, right? Like he did several of them, right?
A ton of them. This guy got to be on camera so much.
So like at that point, you said he admitted this in prison, right? Like,
oh yeah, this is after prison. Like the smell of his own.
What year was
like,
this?
I think this was in the late 90s.
So like even
or
at that
later,
time,
actually.
even at that time, he had a series of famous interview shows under his belt already.
Yeah, by the time Philip Carlo got to him, the man's book that we're using as our source, there had already been stuff.
So to me,
this wasn't the first.
So to me, like, how long had it been since Jimmy Hoffa disappeared at that point already? Like 25 years?
Yeah,
There's
something
no
like that.
way they're going to find him anywhere that they're going to say, definitely that's Jimmy Hoffa.
Correct.
So like at this point, why not just say you killed Jimmy Hoffa? Especially if you're gunning with DeMeo for being the best assassin ever. You know what I mean?
It's the same thing as JFK and Marilyn Monroe. The more time goes, the more people insert themselves into the story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? More
Woody
people.
Harrelson's dad, bro.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, like I said, there's no evidence. And he further alleged later on that he had undertaken contract work, Kuklinski did, for the CIA and apparently eliminating foreign threats and operatives during the Cold War.
What is it, Chuck Barris now? Like, what are we talking about?
He said he spoke of a handler named Phil, of being supplied with false passports and identities, and of traveling across the globe with a government station license to kill. And none of these assertions were ever substantiated, obviously. No intelligence operative named Phil matched his descriptions. No one was ever found or traced down. No evidence of extensive foreign traveling during the claimed periods ever surfaced. He also claimed to have been a key participant in the assumption of Gambino family boss Paul Castellano, which we talked a little bit in Tommy Patera time, stating he was stationed a block away from the Sparks Steakhouse in Manhattan in December 1985, acting as backup and personally shooting Castellano's bodyguard, Tommy Bilotti, sorry. While Gravano, who orchestrated the hit with Josh Gotti, later confirmed Kuklinski's involvement in the Bilotti shooting during the HBO interviews, and many mob insiders and federal investigators initially stated that they had never heard Kuklinski's name in connection with that highly publicized and pivotal mob hit. But he boasted of using crossbows from rooftops with deadly accuracy, of dissolving bodies in vats of acid, of employing hand grenades with tactical precision, of keeping a man alive in a freezer for months only to thaw him out, keeping the man from decomposing in the freezer only to thaw him out and dump the body later to deliberately confuse stuff. Many of these stories were certainly within the realm of possibility for a man of his strength, ruthlessness, and what he was doing for work. But a significant number lacked independent, verifiable evidence. That meant no fingerprints, no specific crime scene forensics matching some of the more elaborate scenarios, no autopsy reports that aligned perfectly with these unique methods. Still, this self-constructed mythology, which was a blend of, I would say maybe a blend of fact and a lot of fiction, worked in his favor for a considerable time. It kept people both in the underworld and potentially in law enforcement afraid or uncertain. It made him seem untouchable, a phantom figure capable of almost anything. The greater the mystery, the more dangerous you appear to somebody who doesn't know anything other than that. And it gave investigators a bewildering, shall we say, array of different leads and dead ends to chase, even as he remained tantalizingly just out of their definitive reach. He was more than just a suspect. He was a burgeoning, horrifying legend, and that legend in time was beginning to get away from him to take on a life of its own. And as his self-styled narrative grew, the real Kuklinski, the man behind the tales, began to unravel, and law enforcement painstakingly started actually closing in on him. The cracks in his carefully constructed facade began showing. The once meticulous planning of his occasional hits gave way to way sloppier execution. He started to trust fewer and fewer people, his paranoia becoming a constant companion to his decision-making, and his already volatile temper just got worse. He confessed to Philip Carlo, again the author, about stabbing a man in a parking lot merely for bumping into him. Another time he shot a man through the heart over a disputed bar tab. Eventually, the same hypervigilance and suspicion that had protected him for so long began to actively undo him. He became convinced that he was constantly being followed, that every new acquaintance was a potential informant or threat. He would take long, unnecessarily convoluted routes to even routine destinations, frequently doubling back to see if a car was on his tail. And this, I don't necessarily not buy, because Tommy Patera did the exact same thing.
I would be fucking, yeah. They make it very clear you're in danger the whole time that you're doing this job.
Yeah. He began sleeping with a loaded gun on his nightstand and another one taped securely beneath the kitchen table. He installed multiple locks on all his doors and lined his basement with an array of padlocks. Their purpose never really was explained to his family. He cut ties with many of his old contacts. When he was forced to work with someone new, he would often subject them to unnerving tests of loyalty, sometimes by issuing veiled threats, other times by offering deliberately false information as bait, waiting to see if it leaked back to him through the underworld grapevine. He was no longer the cool, detached professional who could seamlessly disappear after a job. He was becoming very, very quickly increasingly erratic, impulsive, and sloppy. This calculated precision was gone. His family noticed the change too. Barbara would talk about how he was often up late into the night, pacing the house like a caged animal, obsessively checking his windows, sometimes sitting silently and rigidly in the kitchen until sunrise, staring into the darkness.
I do that, and I'm not even a hitman, dude. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's just called trauma. The man who used to run his household with this iron fist of control and rigidity was, to Barbara, more and more looking like a ghost, or like he had just seen a ghost, or maybe he was just waiting for justice to come crashing through the door. Another example of his unraveling and willingness to kill for seemingly even more trivial reasons was the crossbow test. Kuklinski, ever curious about new killing methods, acquired a small, powerful Italian-made crossbow. To determine its lethality on a human target, he drove around looking for a victim. And spotting an unsuspected man walking alone on a secluded street, Richard pulled up, feigned needing directions to lure the man closer to his car, and then, as the man approached, shot him directly in the forehead with a 6-inch steel-shafted arrow.
Okay, before you say, let me continue, let me say, there's no evidence of this? There's no death by crossbow reported?
The most unique, death I can think of.
Yeah. Okay. Let me continue. The man collapsed instantly, leaving another unsolved murder in his wake. And similarly, after the high-profile Castellano hit, while returning to New Jersey, a hitchhiker gave Richard the finger when he didn't stop to offer a ride. Enraged by this perceived disrespect, Kuklinski, who just decided, fuck it, doubled back and shot the hitchhiker dead on the side of the road. These acts demonstrated, how fast this man was coming undone. He's just
murdering people now, like he's going down to the bathroom downstairs to take a shit.
And one of the more complex and disturbing incidents during his period of decline involved someone called John Spasuto, a con artist with whom Kuklinski had engaged in various schemes with over the years, including Nigerian currency fraud. Spasuto led Kuklinski
real,
yeah.
What? Just this is unrelated to princes.
Spasuto led Kuklinski to a marijuana dealer who, to Kuklinski's horror, was also involved in child pornography and kept several abused children hidden in a secret basement.
Oh, no.
And Kuklinski, despite his own monstrous nature, supposedly, had a strict personal code against harming children. Deeply disturbed by what he saw, he later returned to the dealer's house alone. He systematically shot the dealer and 2 of his associates before leaving, And then, before leaving, he went to the basement door, called down to the terrified children, instructed one of the older girls to count to 20, and then call the police, assuring the men couldn't hurt them anymore. He left the front door open for their escape. And
so he saved a bunch of orphans too?
Yeah, so like, he was like,
sometimes the killer is what you need.
This is like the weird version of the Punisher.
Yeah. And they have these kids. Now these kids showed up in the documentary and talked about this crazy night.
It was around this period that Kuklinski, his high-level mafia connections, dwindling or now dead, no, they did not, began taking on jobs from individuals from individuals he might have once considered beneath him when it came to his professional quote-unquote standards, we'll say. Like, he's now starting to deal with low-level criminals, small-time drug dealers, wannabe mobsters with petty grievances, not like him. He kind of justified these lesser contracts now as necessary cash grabs, so he had a way to maintain his income stream. But in reality, his operational world was very rapidly shrinking. The powerful crime families weren't calling with the same frequency or for the same high-stakes assignments. DeMeo was dead. Robert Pronge was dead now, and Richard Kuklinski, for all his lethal skill and terrifying reputation, had stayed in the deadly game too long. His luck and his nerve were beginning to fray, and then inevitably he made the critical mistake all criminals eventually do. He let the wrong man in, a man who would ultimately lead investigators straight to his door. Tommy Patera did the same thing. One of his best friends, who was not meant to be in this business, wanted out. Tommy wouldn't let him, and the cops got to him, and that was his out. This guy's name was Phil Solimene. The Patterson-based fence and his supposed friend, who he was a fence. He sold illegal things to, for people who don't know what that is, and he was based in Patterson.
Sure.
Who under pressure would agree to cooperate with the authorities. And now the Iceman, slowly but surely, was beginning to melt.
Oh!
Before his final collapse, before his supposed intricate web of his life and crimes was fully exposed, there was still one last chapter to his operational prime, one last spree of violence, one last season of murder, where the Iceman was still, in the terrified whispers of the underworld, the most feared ghost in organized crime. And that's where the relentless multi-jurisdictional investigation, spearheaded by a tenacious New Jersey state trooper named Pat Kane, truly begins to gain traction. We'll delve into the high-stakes undercover operation led by an ATF agent named Dominic Poliferone, and the chilling, candid conversations that were actually caught on tape. The betrayals by those Kuklinski thought he could trust, and the insanely painstaking efforts to separate who this man actually is versus the story what we told and how much of it is myth.
That's awesome.
What did Kuklinski actually do, and what did he merely just want to be a horrified persona and myth to the world, more so than he was ever capable of? And that is where we will pick up next week for the third and final episode on Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman. How much is fact? How much is fiction? Boys, hold on to that doubt.
Yeah, no, I'm holding.
Crime so many times. We'll see how it goes. But you're not wrong to think that
there's something fishy going on in Denmark.
Something fishy's been going on. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So with that said, thank you all so much for supporting us. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode.
Please go buy our shirts at theyeti.com/Chilluminati. We got a brand new Chilluminati shirt, as well as a limited edition Bigfoot shirt by Studio Melectro. If you saw that cool Bigfoot poster we had going on around a couple of whiles ago, Mel actually drew out his entire body, and now he's a little cutie on a t-shirt. So please go buy that. And let me ask you guys one last question. What did Elvis say to his landscaper? Thank you. Thank you for the mulch.
Anyway, me and my wife were sitting outside indulging on our porch one night, enjoying ourselves. I needed to go to the bathroom, so I stepped back inside, and after a few moments, I hear my wife go, "Holy shit, get out here." So I quickly dash back outside, and she's looking up at the sky in awe. I look up too, and there's a perfect line of dozen lights traveling across the sky.